competition gathering for a common purpose. The interpreters cannot see or hear the conference.
First of all, each one of them is going to introduce himself. You'll have 3-4 minutes more or less for each one. Each one of them has a small presentation. There's a video too. And after that, in each of the folders you have something like this. It's called a notebook. This is a pen. And here you can write your questions. Otherwise, there's an app. This is digitalized. And in your phone, if you downloaded it, you can start to ask questions aimed at any of our guests. The important thing here is discussion. Each one of you, if you have a problem in a development or in your company in order to introduce it, I think it should be worth having it in the discussion because they're here to help. So let's start with Javier. Could you please explain what's green catch? Yeah, it's going to be shown now. The presentations. Thank you for the invitation. Green Catch integrates sustainable solutions for buildings. It integrated them into the buildings, whether they're new or old. What a part of the process, the architect, the engineer, right from the time when the project is designed, the ecology is introduced in the industry. So we provide solutions for the project, whether it's a greenfield or whatever, to improve sustainability. So what do we achieve with this? We provide an added value to the end customer because, as you see, this is a change in market which demands greener buildings, greener materials, and this could provide earnings for the developer itself because the building will have more value. One of the things we could do, it's a solar panel and or a garden to produce products for themselves. So the physical aspect of this is very interesting for me. I want a physical solution as such in the essential part of the building. And we need to provide data for the users to improve the efficiency and quality of life in general terms through the Internet of Things, in order to monitor and improve the efficiency. This is a solar pergola which could be used with sustainable materials to generate energy. Now the regulations have changed. Thank you, Javier. Now let's continue with Joan Indaburu. In Deepkey, we work with companies from the real estate industry with data so that the portfolio of buildings they manage becomes more sustainable. As you know, the cost of energy is very important in the real estate industry. It represents 40% of the energy consumed in the world, and we want to leverage the data which are already available from existing buildings, the portfolios investors are already managing. We have different types of Excel data, open data, etc. We're going to combine all this data, which were not managed so far because they were on paper, or because they needed a digital mindset. This is the meeting point of PropTech and KeyTech and traditional consultancy thanks to an SAS platform. We think that thanks to energy efficiency, we can help the investors or asset managers already have. So we have three methods. First of all, visualizing and estimating the ESG indicators to identify the the performance of these assets, developing data models so that we can see when there are consumption deviations. This is a screen from a platform. We work with banks and insurance companies with their own offices, but also big corporations such as SNCF, which has 33,000 buildings, and also real estate industry, Iberolanco, shopping centers, among others, retail, and local communities, local municipalities such as Paris City Council. And we have 600,000 buildings monitored today. We work in optimizing their asset portfolio. So let's focus on IoT now. We work in two areas. Residential area. By law, they need to distribute cost regarding heating for the last 4 to 5 years. As operators have had a huge increase in the data, and with our expertise we're going to help them to study this data, and I'm going to show you a video if I can launch it. I can't start the video. What the first industry would be residential building management, social housing, and the second is people installing IoT meters in order to upload all this data and visualize them at big scale. So while they prepare it, as I can see here, and based on the big amount of French companies you were born in France, yes, in Paris, in 2014. We've been 5 years up to about, and 5 years, 3 years in Italy and 2 in Madrid, in Spain. So, what's going on with our video? Well, no video apparently. Good morning, good afternoon. Alfred is a company that thinks that in the future every home will be smart, will be connected. So we provide an IoT solution which is affordable to achieve this goal, both for existing dwellings and new dwellings. Based on that, we've created a platform that provides services to consumers, to tenants, but also to the tertiary sector, B2B. This would be a smart home controlled by different sensors. We see a high value in changing the paradigm created by IoT in a home, not just for the user. There are 3 points. First of all, marketing. If you can open a door digitally, the end user can visit that flat at any time, whenever they want. From an operational point of view, facilities and community management can be improved in order to provide services to the tenant. And then new models such as Airbnb. Thanks to the IoT, there will be more flexibility and diversity. With regards to marketing, visit anytime. The user has the power whenever they want to visit. Sunday at 7 p.m. they can do it thanks to IoT technology. Having no keys makes it easier to work with different operators, or maybe in rental. And in tourist rental, I think you can see what's going on if you go to an Airbnb flat. And then we can leverage new spaces such as the rooftop of a building which wasn't used in the past, and now it can be prepared. And since the access is digital, that can be a new business model, an additional value to this tenant, the right to use it, for example. So operation, for example, technical alarms can inform of a problem in this dwelling, and the manufacturer can access the dwelling without arranging an appointment with the tenant. Also, incident reporting. If I'm a tenant if I have a problem, I call the company, they call me. When the service provider can come to my place, we need to miss an appointment. If this is digitalized and there's a direct communication between the service provider and the tenant, we need less infrastructure to manage more assets. Then with regards to efficiency, if you've booked a flat, well, it doesn't mean that the air conditioning needs to be on all the time. You can have smart management. The flat can detect whether the tenant is present or not, and it can be on or off. So this is more efficient. And for me, there's an opportunity for a new business model. We're coming from traditional rental and hotels, and we used to purchase this through a travel agency or tour operators. And all of a sudden, we have Airbnb, and anyone can rent a flat to a third party without an agent. So what's the possibility now? Any space you have, you own, can be presented at a marketplace. It can be a parking spot. You can rent it whenever you're not using it, just by having a module installed in your garage door. This is accessible for anyone, so I think this is huge. So this was my presentation. So let's start with our discussion. If anyone has a question, please raise your hands and ask it. But let's start with Alfred. In these new business models, when you see on the news that Amazon can access your garage in order to leave a package for you, as we've seen in the US, or maybe at home you can adapt an area for that. Has your proposal anything to do with this? For Amazon, it's very important to complete the delivery, because otherwise it costs time and money. So making this easier is great for us. They launched a product which was a pack for opening the door and a camera to allow all this. So both for deliveries, this is very important, because you have a successful delivery, and this is key in this business. This is related not just to the real estate industry, but also logistics. And in a new development, could you please explain what we need to include? This is a lock in a community building. What do we have at the bottom. It's in most doors. A relay is triggered here inside. This is with an IoT model. We digitalize this previously existing lock. You can fit this anywhere, you don't need to do any work. And just with this, you can digitalize the opening. So when we speak about the Internet of Things, this is this squared piece with a cable. For me, the Internet of Things is things. What's a thing? The building, the house. This is just a device that connect the thing. Many connected devices create different aspects. Lighting, blinds. Internet of Things is the overall concept, and for us the concept is the building, the dwelling. And this question is for three of you. Do you think of this just for the residential industry, or maybe also hospitality, office buildings, schools? In our case, we've started with residential because we thought that there's a growth here, but we're already thinking in next areas, which are offices and hotels. This is going to create value. Efficiency is going to improve in hotels, for example. The experience will be better. In a hotel chain, they're thinking about self-checking. You arrive and you can open the door of your room without needing to go to the reception, or you can leave without needing to check out. There's a lot of buzz about this. We are thinking about dividing the life cycle of a building, project, construction and exploitation. Who's taking the decisions in the Internet of Things? The owner and developer, or the engineer and the architect that are in contact with this and propose it in every project? Could you please explain your case? In some cases, let's take a public building or a private building. If it's going to be retrofitted, very often the customer talks to the architects. We have a training, but we also have engineering knowledge and telecommunication knowledge, and they ask you to make the building more efficient. They want to monitor the building. They implement systems such as BMS or platforms that capture data from the building and send them to a platform where the consumptions and demands are measured. This would be an example for fittings. In housing, well, we are a startup and we think that there's a huge potential here. And in my opinion, we think that right from the design of the development, the Internet of Things could be included to control some things in the life of the building. We saw that in the real estate industry, the main priorities were accessing and sustainability, and whether it's the investor, the designer, or the tenant, each player needs a control on costs, and for that they need to install devices to see a breakdown of how this dwelling is working and how it can be understood and how savings can be made. In our case, the owner decides. The investment comes from the owner, then the building company executes a project, and the architect, the engineer, they need to listen to the owner. They're not prescribers for the solution, because so far smart home solutions or domotics in the past have there's some fear or concern around them, which is changing now. But you really need to talk to the owners. I don't know how many real estate developers are present here today, or architects or engineers. Has any one of you prescribed the Internet of Things in any of your projects? No one? Are you considering it? Yes? Let's continue with this idea. Prescribers are still the developers. I have this article which is Owners of Nothing, Users of Everything. This article speaks about an issue covered in the previous session, which is that there's more prop tech devoted to rental than purchase. And there's an interesting analysis that defines two reasons. First of all, shifting from products to services. This is the right session, space as a service. And the second is a reason which is not usually covered, which is the worsened economic situation of our youth today, sort of social deflation. The fact that we're all becoming poorer in general terms. In Spain, this is more serious. Maybe if you go to a different country, you go to France, the UK, Nordic countries, it's not that serious. And there are some people who think that real estate developments is not fulfilling its social purpose. That we are taking diverging paths. So, in a city such as Barcelona, it's difficult for young people to find dwelling solutions for young people. Maybe a building such as mine. There are 18 flats, 3 rooms each, like 1 kitchen, 1 living room, etc. This change of model, if we combine these two things and if we add the effect of these devices in our daily lives, we should have a clear idea about making the savings real. In order to be able to do something which was impossible so far, or maybe we can do it but in a more efficient way. I remember, now I'll tell you a story.
16 years ago, we developed 94 properties in Sayagos, a small village in French Sardaigne. At this moment, we could do mortgages throughout Spanish banks in a French territory for Spaniards. One of the problems that we have was that usually from Barcelona 188 kilometers ago, you go through El Cadil tunnel, and once you get out of the tunnel, people wonder, did I lock the door? Did I turn off the lights? They're far away enough so that they cannot come back, and they put things into question. So 16 years ago, we were looking at this, and the only company that did this was an Australian company that we found at the moment that allowed you to have something connected to the electric meter. You could verify whether it was switched on or off. At that moment, people started demanding new services. Do we need to audit? This is the question. In the case this is done during the project, in which way can you guarantee this savings? So let's do one part sustainability. What tangible savings could I get? It is one more service, perfect. But this new generation demanding things, what can I promise to this new generation? What can I say so that the roads start to converge? I think this is a very complicated question. Young people nowadays want to live in the now. We don't think about saving to buy a house. So I think it's more of a developer question. A financial developer question. We should tackle the question in that way. Tomorrow I'll be there and today I'm here. I don't want to link myself to another mortgage, especially with the family models that we have nowadays, which is why we think about co-livings and such. To be able to reduce our investments. The second, what can we say in terms of costs? I don't think the fact of being able to save energy of purchases has to do with it. This is a protection, right? So we have a sensor to be able to see water leakage. Because of this, we can pay 1,000 euros, for instance, and only with that cost, I could have bought something else. This technology is affordable. It hasn't been embedded because of what we said before. No prescriber has trusted a solution or has had things really spelled out for them. I don't think a young person stops buying a house because of the electric bill. Nowadays, a developer, thanks to this technology, can tell you, listen, you have to pay 50 euros for the electricity for every 2 months. The issue is seeing the behavior and be able to meet it. You, as companies, do process these data. It's true, to put it in context, we work in B2B2C, so with companies that rent living spaces later. In terms of social leasers, we work with a client that has over 800,000 IoT devices installed, so we gather all this data and we segment so that he can see in which living space there is a lack of control in terms of costs. You mean rentals, right? Yes, I mean rentals. From then on, thanks to all these data created by the IoT, we can think about long-term strategies of energy transition so that we can improve the isolation of the living quarters, so we can see the energy being used that in the end doesn't afford the level of comfort that the tenant is looking for. Thanks to all this data, we can elaborate a better strategy. Yes, with BIM, when it comes to gathering data, you design living quarters with parameters of isolation and consumption, but then they never check whether that design validates the first hypothesis. So thanks to IoT, we can have a feedback of all this data. Thanks to BIM, you can see whether the calculations correspond to reality. And then you can correct the design. This is interesting and something we can offer in terms of design. We have a short-term goal, which is reducing the consumption or controlling it, and then Later on, we have a goal on a part of the investors so that their portfolio becomes more sustainable in an economic but also in an environmental manner. Perhaps from the point of sustainability and these new generations that are coming, that are here actually, they ask for a more sustainable shared world in many aspects. For example, there may be solutions such as energy self-production. We know that the laws are different now. There's a sun tax now. We're starting to see the trend in many places. The real savings could be actually creating a culture that shares energy. So if we put a solar pergola or solar panels, I don't only sell solar pergolas. This is an element of a concept that goes beyond, which is integrating the building as a whole. This would have repercussions in a self-production of clean energy, which could become savings in your bills. If this is multiplied by in many times in many buildings, I think people are ready to share. If you have enough energy and someone hasn't enough, you could transmit energy to this person throughout sensors and other technology, and monitoring throughout the BIM, knowing how to give feedback to the system to be able to improve it. Out of all of this, we could create savings culture among all young people. I actually come from BIM Academy. I have it integrated within me. It's in my veins. The fact of digitalizing projects allows to have this interaction with data. This was the next question. Did you have the opportunity of working with projects that have been projects in which you have analyzed parts of your data and your elements? Have you started to work in this manner so that BIM isn't only for projects and constructions, but also for final management? Right now, because of my job, I collaborate with an important team here in Barcelona. We work with BIM and we have assessed the life cycle of the total project. Concerning isolation, we conduct simulations to improve the project. We have changed our chip. In other countries, they have done this before. Right now, it is expanding. But BIM management are absolutely necessary. Before, we worked with things that were isolated from the rest of the process. And now we have an entire network in which the client, consultant, and architect are interconnected. All of that has an impact on the price. This has a huge potential. We haven't had a real case of BIM design that has been later validated in real time. We are working on a pilot project and our cycle isn't totally closed. It is interesting to contrast the design and reality. We don't have it either because we manage portfolios in several places. We did not really connect with each and every BIM yet. It is difficult when the building exists already. We have 2 minutes left. Maybe we should open the floor to questions. I'm sure the audience has questions. Hello, good morning. It's for you, Alfred. I'm Enrique. I would like to know if you could give us a range of prices of investment of a building with 10 floors with 100 square meter flats. Yes, a building with 10 floors and every apartment has 100 square meters. He's already asking for a discount. I do have a reference price. It depends on the distribution. It's not the same to have a loft or many rooms in one apartment. You have different lighting, different blinds, different numbers of blinds. With a full equipment, everything you could see in Alfred, access, safety, blinds, lighting, it wouldn't be higher than 2,000 euros per living space. Yes, per property or living space, a standard one. 100 square meters living space. It depends on the elements and the distribution of the living quarters. Can we find this with a cell phone or a tablet? Yes, with any mobile device. You can find it with many users and also with Siri or Google Home, Alexa, any voice device. Thank you. Any further questions? You can close the table, Ignacio. Okay, our timer is at 0. We thank you for being here with us today. As developers, consultants, and professionals, we still must link IoT and energy with the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17. 7 of them directly affect us in our sector. And we'll have to answer for our actions briefly. So it's important to look closely to our working practices. Thank you all, Carmen. I'd like to thank you, Ignace and Javier, Ivan, Daniel. Please, a round of applause for the round table. Thank you. We'll be back at 4 p.m. with a very important international lecturer. Thank you very much.